Hi, welcome back to the You at Your Best podcast. I'm your host, Morgan. I've spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about my purpose, figuring out who I am, discovering myself, learning to love myself, but I haven't spent a lot of time talking about how you can do that too. I feel like that's a theme within a lot of my episodes, but I wanted to make an episode explaining that entirely, explaining how you can discover your purpose, your gift, learn to love and accept yourself for exactly who you are, so that you don't feel like you have to be like someone else to be right. Up until recently, I always felt like I had to look at other people and look at what they're doing and how they're expressing themselves and be more like them in order to be the best version of me, in order to feel accepted. But what I've realized is that the more I started accepting every part of myself without shame, the more I realized that it was never about other people. It was always just about me. And also, before I get into this episode, I want to share kind of what made this happen. This is something that has been happening for years. I've been on the journey of learning to love and accept myself and discovering who I truly am. And in a way, I've always known who I am. But something recently that happened that changed so much of my perspective, forced me into a spiritual awakening that took me days to recover from, was actually Stranger Things season 5 coming out. We all grew up with Stranger Things, at least I did, and a lot of us that are my age. Stranger Things was a huge thing for us, and I remember each season of Stranger Things, I was an entirely different person, and watching Will truly accept himself, it really did something to me, because since season 1, Will has always been my favorite, partially because he's gay, and also because I felt so connected to him. I related to him in so many ways because I am the type of person that dealt with so much internalized shame and hatred towards myself, but at the same time couldn't hide it. And that's exactly how he was. He wanted to change himself so bad, but at the same time, he couldn't hide those things about himself as much as he tried. They were always there. He could never just erase them. He could never just pretend like they were not there or distract himself. They were always there no matter what. And that's how it was for me. And seeing him accept himself, it really made me feel like he's changing and growing at the same pace that I am. In season 1 and 2, whenever he was a kid, but still really struggling, I was that same way at that same time. And I can't even remember how old I was at that time. But each season kind of correlated with the stage of life that I was in. And this season is the one about acceptance and love and coming into who you are. Really loving every part of yourself instead of trying to hide them or work against who you've always been. And that resonated with me so deeply. And then also, I am a person that is like really big on ships, like shipping people together. And the type of ship that I've always loved is the slow burn ship, where there's tension that builds up over time and it's obvious but also not obvious whenever they're together. I'm always going to be the person that chooses the relationship that takes years to be built, which is weird because that's kind of the opposite of my actual life. Because what I chose was the relationship where we went straight into it, not really knowing ourselves very well, and we grew together. Seeing Stranger Things really brought back my obsession with Byler, so Will and Mike. I've shipped them since the very beginning. I've known that Will is gay since the very beginning. I used to feel a lot of shame about my obsession with gay ships and Byler. A lot of people made me feel bad, and I believed them. I thought that I was a weirdo. I thought that I was a creep. But that's not what this is about at all. This is about me being able to safely explore my sexuality whenever I didn't have the chance to do it in person. Me being able to understand myself better through watching other people. Me realizing that I love the tension and the slow burn that comes with relationships, and that's something that my boyfriend and I have talked about, and we both relate to that in the same way, and we've found ways to give each other what we need. But these ships, they really resonated with me. They really were who I was, and I felt so much shame about them. And this time in my life, I started accepting it. I started realizing that I'm allowed to honor each part of myself. I'm allowed to honor that part of myself that wants to watch Byler ship edits all day. I don't do it because it actually caused me to go into a full-on meltdown or shutdown. It's kind of a mixture of a meltdown and a shutdown because I was so hyper-fixated on them that whenever I stopped or whenever I wasn't watching the videos, I got this huge depletion of dopamine, and it just made me extremely sad, extremely miserable, and I haven't felt like that in a really long time, so it was scary, and I'm still recovering from that. It was really intense, but coming out of it, I'm such a different person. I love and accept myself even more than I did previously, and I was doing really good with self-acceptance, but there were parts of myself that I wasn't allowing myself to have out of fear that I would fall into bad habits again. But long story short, because that was a lot, that really triggered self-acceptance for me. And I wanted to make this episode all about how you can learn to love and accept yourself and find your purpose and your gift. To teach you how to see your own purpose, I'm going to share how I found mine first. And I also want to reassure you that this isn't about pressure or hustle or rushing anything. Purpose is something that emerges naturally as you grow and when you stop abandoning who you have always been. So the best way that I would describe myself and my gift is, I guess, just like a truth teller. I am honest, but not in the harsh way, in a soft, reflective, kind way. I tell people how it is. I talk about my experiences. I have qualities that I've always had for literally as long as I can remember that are parts of me that formed my purpose way before I even had the words for it, way before I even knew how to explain who I am. Those qualities are verbal clarity. I use words to help people see themselves. Emotional sensitivity. I feel things extremely deeply and extremely accurately. A part of that is from trauma. A part of that is just me being such a highly sensitive person. I'm highly observant. I notice a lot of things that other people miss. I'm naturally an honest person. I can't hide myself. I've tried and I can't. Just like with Will, I speak from the center of who I am whenever I talk because I can't hide myself. I overshare a lot because of that, and I used to hate that about myself, but now I've grown to love it because it makes me who I am. I have this need to express, so oversharing. I'm very curious. My entire life, I've always wanted to know why. I can't just accept things as truth. I have to understand why they're true and go deeper than surface level. I have this sense of inner intensity. I have big emotions, big thoughts, and big meaning attached to everything. I've always had such intense intuition. I understand patterns and intentions almost instinctively. I hyper-focus on things that matter to me a lot, which is a gift, but can also create a meltdown like it did this most recent time. I have this natural self-awareness. I've gained a lot more self-awareness the older I've got, but even before that, I've always been naturally self-aware because of trauma, because I had to always make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I learned cautious discretion from a very early age, but it's still a part of who I am, and I love that part about me. I have courage. I say the things that I feel like other people are scared to admit. And lastly, I have such intense empathy within me, and it kind of wraps itself up in directness. I balance softness and truth really well. And those are things that I, for a long time, tried to hide, that I didn't like about myself, that I wished were gone. But as soon as I started accepting those things, that's whenever I truly met my fullest potential. I want to share a couple of stories or moments that really helped me in discovering my gift, because I've always known, I've always had an idea, but I didn't know fully. And these were moments that really brought me to who I truly am and really helped me see that about myself. So the first spark of becoming a podcaster was whenever I first found podcasts. I started listening to Try Not to Care by Ashley Corbo. That was the first podcast I ever listened to. Whenever I first listened to podcasts, it kind of unlocked something in me. It helped me realize that there were parts of me that I was hiding that I didn't need to hide, that people loved, because something that a lot of podcasters have in common is that we all have this need to help people, this need to understand things more deeply. These podcasts help me see the parts of myself that I was hiding and that I hated. I felt recognized whenever I would listen to them. I felt almost like this is what I'm meant to do. This is who I've always been. And that's what triggered me to start my podcast, even though my journey ended up being a lot different than I thought it would. I still always knew that that was who I was. And then whenever I was a kid, I always loved creating things, creating videos, voice recordings, content. I just loved sharing myself, my thoughts, my interests. Childhood passions are often the earliest sign of purpose, and these were the things that I loved the most whenever I was a kid. My cousin and I, we would make videos all the time. I was kind of like his social media manager. I made YouTube videos sharing hauls of things that I liked. I always loved fashion. Ever since I was a kid, have always been an oversharer. I share things that other people avoid. I ask deeper questions, and people used to get so annoyed at me for that. Whenever I was younger, I would always ask my family what if questions, and it drove them crazy. I never accept things as just because. I've always had really intense critical thinking skills mixed with emotional depth, and that kind of created who I am. These things didn't make sense to me whenever I was younger. I thought they were flaws. I thought they were things that I needed to change. Discovering who you are isn't about trying to be like other people. It isn't about trying to hide parts of yourself that other people judge you for, like my obsession with gay ships. It's about fully accepting those things and fully letting yourself express those without guilt, without shame. It's about having balance, remembering that you can do what you love because you're going to take care of yourself at the end of the day. Purpose isn't something that you create. It's something that you remember. Looking back into your childhood, what are the things that made you who you are? And I know for some people that's really hard because you can't remember your childhood. And I was in that boat for a long time. I would hear people say like, what did you love as a kid? And I couldn't remember because I cut out a lot of that in my life, because while I had an amazing childhood, I also had a really traumatic childhood. But over time, the more you heal, the more you journal, the more you can see your past and see who you are, see why you are the way that you are. It takes time. This isn't pressure. This isn't me trying to make you feel like you have to know everything right now. But whenever you're ready, whenever you're able to, look at your childhood. Look at the things that you loved and the things that made you so happy. Things that make you happy, especially whenever you were younger and you didn't have that shame around it. Those are the things that you need to hold on to. Those are the things that you need to let yourself explore. You need to let yourself explore every single aspect of yourself, whether that's your sexuality, interests that you have, your physical appearance, your hair color, your body weight, the things that bring you joy, the things that other people shamed you for, and maybe you started becoming ashamed of them. Stop feeling shame about everything. That's how you truly learn to accept yourself. If you take anything from this episode, it's to stop feeling shame and let yourself explore every single individual part of yourself, especially the parts that you want to hide or you feel pulled to hide. Look at those parts of yourself with love and compassion and let yourself explore them while also protecting yourself and keeping an eye on yourself. As the higher version of you, watch yourself as you let yourself explore these things. If it's something that you feel pulled to do or you feel dread whenever you need to be pulled away from it, as long as it doesn't make you insanely sad and almost have like a huge dopamine drop, like what happened to me, explore it. Keep on exploring it until your mind is finally ready to accept it and not have to be so focused on it. The reason why we want to focus so heavily on something and we keep on thinking like, I don't want to deal with this anymore, if that makes any sense at all, is because those are parts that our body and our intuition is screaming at us to explore. I know, for example, with sexuality, a lot of people really struggle with exploring this part of themselves because they're so scared of what could be true. But I promise you, whatever is true is okay. Whatever is true about your sexuality, that's who you are. And instead of trying to work against it, accept it. I know it's hard. I know it's painful, but I promise you, whenever you accept the parts of yourself that you felt the need to hide, and you let yourself do and explore those things however you need to within safe limits, if you're in a relationship like my boyfriend and I are doing, just let yourself explore it. Let yourself think about it. Let yourself understand it. Let yourself spend weeks or months hyperfixating on it. Of course, we have parts of our lives, like if you're a parent, sometimes you got to push that to the side and pay attention to your kid. And that can be a really hard balance. And I've been struggling with that right now. But you can explore those parts of yourself and be in your everyday life. And honestly, something that I've realized is that whenever I explore those parts of myself and I let myself look at those parts without shame, without self-hatred, that's whenever I truly feel so happy in my everyday life. Whenever I'm spending time with my baby, I feel more connected to her and happier around her because I'm so connected to myself. Your gift is usually the thing that you've done naturally your entire life. For me, naturally, my entire life, I've always overshared. I've always done that. And I started hating that stuff about myself because of the shame that people gave me, the reactions that I would get. Me being a hypersensitive person, even if people didn't openly express something negative about it, I could see it on their face. I could see it in their body language, in their words, the way that they spoke, their tone. I noticed that stuff and it made me pull myself back. But I don't need that anymore. We don't need to hide those things. If you're someone that talks all the time and over explains things and you want to talk to people all the time, it's not because you're annoying, it's not because you're too much, it's because you love connecting with people. If you're someone who stays quiet and listens, and a lot of people are like, why are you so quiet? There's nothing wrong with it. You're just quiet because that's who you are, and maybe you're more of a listener, and your purpose is to help people feel good about themselves. Purpose doesn't always have to be a job or a career. Purpose is just overall what is fulfilling in your life. And every single person has a million different purposes. Your purpose is hidden in all of the things that people told you you were too much for or you were too weird for. So pay attention to what feels easy for you but hard for others. Notice what naturally comes to you. Ask yourself, when do you feel the most like yourself? Look at your sensitivities, because your biggest wounds and traumas often point to your biggest gifts. Accept your weirdness, your passions, your interests, instead of rejecting them, even if other people have rejected them. Stop trying to make yourself small or normal. We're not here to be small. We're not here to be normal. We're not here to be like everyone else. We're here to be like ourselves. And while we're all so similar as human beings, we're also all so different. The things that you have that are who you truly are, they're there for a reason. They're there because that's your point. That's the reason why you're here. And personally, I don't want to live my whole life being terrified of the things about me that other people won't accept. And then I'm on my deathbed and I'm just thinking, I didn't even live. I was never me. That's one of my biggest fears, is dying before I even get to be me, before I even get to accept who I am and fully express who I am and live a life where I'm truly being myself. And treat self-acceptance as a spiritual practice. A lot of us think like, oh, I'm just not a spiritual person, but accepting yourself and loving yourself, that's spirituality. That's true religion even. A lot of people try to follow a guidebook for how they should be instead of listening to their hearts and what they want. And I get why we do that, to be accepted by everyone else. But the point of this life is not to be accepted by everyone else. It's to be accepted by yourself. You can't discover your purpose while abandoning yourself. When you start loving the parts that you once hid, the path becomes clear. Purpose grows as you expand into your authentic self, not as you make yourself small into something that someone else expects you to be. Stop focusing on other people. Stop thinking about the other people that are going to judge you or criticize you. Those people don't matter. Even if they're important to you, even if you love them, their opinion doesn't matter. You are your own individual person, and that's why you're here. If your parents don't accept parts of you, if your friends don't accept parts of you, if your partner doesn't accept parts of you, that doesn't matter. Their opinion, it should be background noise for you. Who you truly are, that's where the love truly lies. And I know we live in a world where we are kind of forced to be like everyone else, but be the person that breaks those rules, that breaks free from societal expectations. That's where you will find yourself. Every single human being needs to be there, but we're so worried about not being loved that we are so scared to even accept ourselves. And it's so sad that that's the world we live in today, and it's not any of our faults. It's the culture that we live in. But I promise you, you will feel lighter, happier, more fulfilled whenever you accept yourself and look at the parts of yourself that you are so terrified of. Remember that you don't have to have it all figured out. Uncertainty is normal. Being in process is normal. Discovering yourself slowly, that's normal. You don't have to rush into a big purpose. Your purpose evolves as you evolve. Your journey is way different than someone else's, so don't focus on someone else's journey. Don't compare your journey to someone else's. Just focus on you, on your growth, your journey, and how you move along through things. Your purpose isn't a destination. Healing isn't a destination. It's the way you treat yourself as you move through everything. And you want to know the truth? You already know yourself. You already do. The things that are hidden that you used to love whenever you were younger, that's who you are. Who you used to be whenever you were younger, the qualities that you had that people criticized, that's who you are. You already know. It's hidden and it's scary to look at it, but you know, and it's there. Focus on those things. And you are already beginning the process of discovering your purpose. Just by listening to this podcast episode, just by wanting to better yourself, by feeling that need to, by slowly letting yourself and encouraging yourself to focus on the things that make you happy, by rejecting things that people say about you that aren't true. This is your life, so live it. And you want to know the real truth about your purpose? It doesn't require you to be someone else. You don't find your purpose by looking outward. You find it by looking inward and back at who you've always been. Your gift will feel familiar, not foreign. For this week's journal prompt, I want you to write what parts of you have been here all along. The traits, the interests, the sensitivities, the habits that you've carried since you were a kid. And what do they reveal about your natural gift? Another one, because I'm going to share two for this episode, because I think that's really important. And discovering your purpose, it's a really long journey, and sometimes we need more things, more prompts. What do I naturally do that other people come to me for? And that's all that I have for this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope it helped you understand yourself better. I really hope it helped you let go of some of that shame and guilt that you feel about who you are. I really hope it encouraged you to accept every single part of yourself, even the parts of yourself that other people may have criticized. If you could, please share my podcast, give me a 5-star rating. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next Sunday.